Cattles and Ramie.
I describe him as the best, obviously.
It's Cattles.
He throws it out there, speaks his mind. That's cool.
It's Ramie.
He's supposed to make people laugh. He's just an expert at it.
Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
Is Townsend still talking? Is he still talking? He is. Is there a way that we could go into his post game just to hear him? Is that
no old guy?
He's still going. How long do you think this goes, guys?
He's still telling you what's wrong with the game today.
I wouldn't be surprised if he outlasts you guys.
They won 60 games this year, right? Was it 60? Was that the final number? I'm going to listen to him on the way home.
Oh, he'll still be going.
The guy's a machine. He is a machine.
They won 60 games.
Won 60 games. Game 162. This is his season swan song.
The swan song, baby.
He's holding on to it. He's gripping onto the season as tight as he can.
Whatever you got left in the bucket.
Caller number 72 of the postgame show.
Turn it upside down. Get it all out.
You hear those callers. County.
Just a defeated bunch. It's like a support group today.
One guy called in and said, well, opening day was fun.
Yeah.
The other 161, not so much, but we'll always have opening day.
Have opening day 22, baby.
Anyway, Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports with you for about an hour and 16 minutes today. So let's stick with baseball because a big moment happened yesterday during the show. It was later in the show. Here is what happened. Of course, we're talking history, Ramie. History in baseball.
Yes, we are.
Hello.
And here it is.
Here's the moment.
Right here.
It happened.
This is what happened last night.
Just keeping you at the edge of your seat.
On the Yankees radio network.
This is Townie getting back at us.
Here.
Oh,
Karma. Karma's biting us right now.
Here's the 1-1.
There it is.
Swung on. There it goes.
Oh.
Deep left. It is high. It is far. It is gone. Number 62 to set the new American League record. Aaron Judge hits his 62nd. All the Yankees out of the dugout to greet him. This is Judgment Day. Case closed.
You know he wrote that out.
Was it? Oh, he's been waiting for that for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. All right, so was it me only who felt like somebody almost like goosed Sterling to let him know that like it was deep enough to be out?
It did seem that way.
Because early in the year he had a couple of calls where he was calling home runs and they were like 100 feet short.
You think he was a little gun shy?
I want to hear the beginning of that call one more time.
Pretty surreal.
Oh,
not that.
Here's the 1-1. Swung on. There it goes. Deep
Swung
left.
on. There we go.
It is far.
Somebody
It
definitely
is
pinched him.
gone. Number
So there goes John Sterling. Here was Aaron Judge in the postgame.
Pretty surreal. You know, getting a chance to get to 60 and tie Babe Ruth was a special accomplishment. You know, just from that's a babe. You know, and getting a chance to tie Roger Maris. You know, another Yankee. Outfielder is it's incredible. You know, and getting a chance to pass him and have my name next to their name. It's something I definitely will never forget, and just completely honored to be associated with guys like that.
So Judge hits 62. He is in the record books. Let's go back to Roger Maris Jr., Hot Tub Time Machine, when Judge hit number 61, and Maris Jr. had this to say in the postgame.
I think it means a lot, and it's not just for me. I think it means a lot for a lot of people, that he's clean. He's a Yankee. He plays the game the right way. And, I think it gives people a chance to look at somebody who, should be revered for hitting 62 home runs, and not just as a guy who did it in the American League. He should be revered for, being the actual single season home run champ. I mean, that's really who he is if he hits 62. And I think that's what needs to happen. I think baseball needs to look at the records, and I think baseball should do something.
Well, he did hit number 62, and that will be the final number of the season because the Yankees sat Judge down today. Ramie, I know you got takes on this.
I do, Nick. And yesterday, before we left the air, I said, oh, man, do I go home and spend my Tuesday night arguing with people
Did you?
about what is really the single season home run record? So I go home, right? I meditate. I meditate every night after I go home.
Do you?
I do. I meditate every night when I go home from the show, walk the
right.
dog.
I'm that tough to work with that you have to meditate after the show every day.
No, this precedes you. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Every co-host I've had has been difficult. I walk the dog to the 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
I get my fix of Sour Patch Kids. Got to have the Sour Patch Kids. Then I come home and I start scrolling Twitter. And there was one tweet that almost made me spend my Tuesday night.
Almost triggered you.
Almost triggered me to spend my Tuesday night arguing about what is the real home run record. And it was from who I think is the best baseball writer in the game right now. A guy I think is tremendous. I respect greatly. I read his stuff regularly.
Jason Stark?
Jeff Passan.
Oh, okay. He's good.
Jason Stark is like 1A. Love
Okay,
Jason
gotcha.
Stark. Used to have him on my show weekly. And Jeff Passan tweeted, Aaron Judge's 62 home runs is a remarkable moment. Barry Bonds' 73 home runs is the record. There is nothing else to discuss. I saw that.
That's pretty, declarative.
That's very declarative.
Yes.
Declarative.
Yes, tough word.
That word. It is very that word. Okay?
Yes.
And I was like, oh, man. I really want to respond to this. I really want to give my thoughts on this. But I didn't. I put my phone down. I watched the latest episode of Atlanta. I watched the latest episode of SNL. Had myself a great Tuesday evening and just chilled, right? But my wheels were turning the whole time about this because it seems to me, Nick, that there is like a double standard when it comes to Barry Bonds and the home runs that he hits. And everybody counts them and talks about the greatness of Barry Bonds. And I was thinking there's a double standard and that people don't necessarily look at McGwire or Sosa or other cheats of that time in the same way, that they'll dismiss them, but for some reason recognize Barry Bonds. So
Right.
I put up a poll this morning at Ramie is tweeting, Ramie. And I said, question for those who say Bonds' home run record is the true record. Do you also acknowledge the home runs and prolific seasons of Sosa and McGwire? You had 4 choices. Yes, no. McGwire, yes. Sosa, no. Sosa, yes. McGwire, no. 81% of the people said they also acknowledge McGwire and Sosa. And for a second, I was like, okay, cool. At least people are consistent. At least they're consistent across the board.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. No, that just means we have a bigger problem than I thought. There is no accountability across the board for any cheats or anybody who does anything wrong. And that drives me crazy, Nick, because the home run record is important to me. All right. It's important to me. I know it's not to a lot of other people. It's important to me as a huge baseball. Baseball is my first love. It'll always be my favorite sport. And to me, that was always an iconic number. And when somebody broke it, I wanted it to be true and real and genuine and pure. And it's not.
Well,
like
it's real, genuine, and pure to you, isn't it?
In my own mind, in my own
isn't that
record
good
book,
enough, though?
It's not. And you know why it's not? Because the more the Jeff Passans of the world just sell it off as that. Let me read the tweet again.
This tweet really got you.
Aaron Judge's 62 home runs is a remarkable achievement. Barry Bonds' 73 home runs is the record. There is nothing else to discuss. That last sentence, there's nothing else to discuss.
Right.
Let's not put any context on that whatsoever. Let's not put any asterisk next to it. Let's not, just nothing else to discuss. Barry Bonds' greatness is in the books, and there's nothing else. And that's crazy. This is one of those topics that makes me feel like Mugatu from the Zoolander movies. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. How am I the only one looking at the magic act and realizing that it's not actual magic happening?
I don't think
that there's a sleight of hand, that there's an illusion here.
I don't think you're the only one. I think the 81% that happened to answer your Twitter poll, is opposing your viewpoint. But I don't think you're the only one that looks at the situation the way you look at it. I think there has to be a lot of people out there in the world that are baseball fans that feel like McGwire and Sosa and Bonds' legacies will forever be tarnished. That's at least where I'm at. Like when I look at those guys, it's, as they used to say back in the day, it's, in the obituary. It's in the obituary. Like Bonds in his obituary, it's going to be there. Same thing with those other guys. Rafael Palmeira's another one. So I just, look, is it great to have a clean AL home run champion? Yes, it is. It's a great thing. The record books have been and always will be way too mythical. This idea of the magical record books that exist. There are way too many records that were broken at certain times. There are way too many things. all you have to do is go back to the Negro leagues and say,
And Nick,
okay, just toss them out. Because
if you want to break down the record books into eras, be my guest. But if we're just going to have one record book and we're going to have one single season home run record, we're going to have one home run king as far as the career number, you can't sit here and tell me that it's the guy we all know cheated.
But I don't think it's universal. Again, I think it's person to person. I don't think it's universally agreed upon that Barry Bonds is the home run champion.
You don't agree with me that the further away we get from it, that the more and more people just go, yeah, no, he's great. Like there's nothing to it. Like Barry Bonds is just
if
great.
you have people not adding the context, but I think the context is there. I mean, I think if you've got your head in the clouds and you're not going to research anything and you just listen to Jeff Passan's Twitter feed, then you'll be like, oh, yeah, Barry Bonds the guy. That's it. It's over. But I think if you watch the sport, like, here's the thing. The people that care about this the most, and I loved baseball growing up. It was my number one sport until I got to like my early 20s. Then football took over. But I think the people that you're talking to that this lands with the most, Ramie, are the people that know the context, that know the game. Like the people that are truly impacted by the record books, they are the hardcore traditional baseball fans who still watch 140 games a year. When you talk about the rest of the sports world, I think universally people know what happened. I think they will continue to know what happened because it's almost impossible not to.
I mean, it will always be a footnote, but I think the font gets smaller.
So like 2050, you think nobody's going to know that Barry Bonds?
I think the font gets smaller and smaller on that footnote the farther away we get from it, Nick. And this might be
we just need Judge to hit 75 then.
This might be a leap too far.
74, 75, 76.
To me, this is a symptom of society. Like, people just don't want accountability anymore. Like, you can just do whatever you want.
He's not in the Hall of Fame.
There's no accountability. I know, and every year he doesn't get in the Hall of Fame, I have to argue with people about that.
So
too.
wouldn't that be accountability?
Isn't that the ultimate accountability? Or you want him to take accountability for his actions?
I want as much as we can possibly do.
So you want
to set the record straight on Barry Bonds and any other steroid cheat.
So we should print out a picture of Barry and put it on every telephone pole and every tree. And just make sure that it says Barry did roids with a picture of his face.
If there's any acknowledgement of Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame, it should be as the greatest cheat and fraud in the history of this sport.
So real quick, Ramie, who is the home run king to you?
The career, Hank Aaron.
Okay.
Single season, It's now Aaron Judge.
Gotcha.
All right. Ramie has spoken.
I'm a diehard Cubs fan, man. You're not going to find me standing for Sammy Sosa. A cheat is a cheat.
You got a Sammy Sosa T-shirt somewhere. I know you do.
It might still be in the closet somewhere. I mean, there was some.
Were you rooting for him? The 66, the 65,
I didn't know, man.
Okay.
I was naive. I was with the rest of you, but once I knew,
the rest of you, with the rest of all of you.
No, we knew.
I didn't know at the time. I'll admit, I didn't know at the time. I'll admit it. I was naive. Call it whatever you want.
I will say this. I think over time, at least for me, I have been desensitized to the steroid era. And I truly believe a lot of players during that era, and I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just telling you that that's what happened, and he was a part of it.
I agree with you.
I do think there's accountability, and I do think that, people understand that his legacy is tarnished. Not every single person, and you're not going to get – nobody agrees 100% on anything.
Every single person agrees with me.
Well, good luck. I don't think that's going to end well for you. 916-339-1140 is the text line. Phone number 1-800-920-1140. Don't forget, you can check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140 out there as well. We've got some Bill Maher tickets we got to give away, and we got a lot more to get to. Got some Niners talk. We've got the Kings to talk about as well. And speaking of the Kings, does this Kings core have 1 year to prove themselves?
Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140. Kings preseason action continues Sunday on Sactown Sports against the Blazers.
Drive sets up another alley-oop and another rip thrown down by Rashawn Holmes.
Coverage begins at 4:30 on your home for the Kings.
Johnson coming up. Them dudes, Nick and Ramie, the Cattles and Ramie show right now.
It's the new spot for local sports talk in the afternoon. Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports, 1140.
Happy hump day to all of you. Thanks for joining us as always. It is much appreciated on this Wednesday. So, Ramie, when we talk about the Kings this upcoming season, we've talked a lot about Monte McNair and how big of a year it is for Monte. This is seen as his team. We talked about John Hollinger yesterday, writing that maybe Wes Wilcox a little bit more involved than we thought. But Hollinger is really the only voice that has put that out there in the ether. So I don't want to overplay that too much. This is no doubt a huge year for Monte because he's the guy that's got the title. And as we know, he does not have a contract that extends through this, next couple of years. And we know that because when he was asked about it at Media Day, he skirted the question, which tells us he doesn't have a contract that goes beyond this season. But maybe we need to focus on more people, right? Maybe we need to focus on more people than just Monte McNair. Hollinger wrote in the same preview that had that little nugget about Wilcox and Monte. Finally, in the rush to salve the wound of the NBA's longest playoff drought, there also is the existential question of what is our end game here? Let's say the Kings go 41-41, grab the 8th seed and lose a gentleman's sweep in the first round. Then what? And then Hollinger got a little snarky after the parade, of course. Chuckles in parentheses. The Kings probably should have traded Barnes a while ago, but were reluctant to take a step back by moving him. Instead, they may see his trade value die on the vine this summer, although extending him, this is another option. Extending Sabonis will be difficult. He goes into the contract stuff with Domas. Ramie, when you look at this big picture, does this core, this roster right now, does it have 1 year to prove itself?
I mean, it looks that way to me, Nick. And this article made me think that much more because when you look at the situation with Harrison Barnes, who right now I think you have to consider part of the core in this win now mentality, and the fact that they kept him around and he's one of the more highly rated guys on NBA lists that's on this roster. He's part of the core. Domas Sabonis, obviously part of the core of this team. And then you throw in the uncertainty of Monte McNair's contract situation. And he alludes to what power does Mike Brown have, and will he have more say and more power in the roster moving forward in future years? With the contract situations of a couple of guys in Sabonis and Barnes who are part of the core of this team and the front office, you would think that if there is a shakeup in the front office, whoever is coming in wants to put their stamp on it and wants to make it their franchise, is going to have their vision of what this Kings team is going to look like. And you start with those guys that probably won't be around here very long, like Sabonis, like a Harrison Barnes, and go from there. And you're probably, I don't know if De'Aaron Fox is a movable asset anytime soon after just signing the Supermax. And obviously you just went in with Keegan Murray. We might be talking about that being the new big two that they want to build around starting next year with Sabonis and Barnes and who knows who else. Not really a big part of the plans one season from now.
What is fascinating to me is what is the succession plan if Monte's gone? Because if you keep Wes Wilcox and you elevate him to the GM or president of basketball operations, there's actually a chance, might even be a good chance, depending on how Wes feels about this team, that a number of these guys actually stay on the roster, and he makes changes, of course, but he might be a De'Aaron Fox guy. He might be a Domas guy. He might be a Harrison Barnes guy. But going into this year, what I would say, as far as this core, you have to show significant improvement. I don't know if that's 41 wins, 42 wins, 38 wins. I don't know if that's a play-in or the playoffs. I mean, if they get to the playoffs, I feel like we all would sit back and say, okay, they're headed in the right direction. Let's keep the ball rolling here. If it's the play-in, doesn't matter if they're the 7th seed or the 10th seed. Doesn't matter if they missed the play-in by a half a game or 5 games. We can play all of that in our heads. I need to see significant improvement. I need to see them be competitive. I need to see them have a chance to get into the play-in, if not the playoffs. Because when you look at this, De'Aaron Fox, we've talked about this a little bit on the edges. Fox has to prove to everybody, I think, that he's a true number one.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a true number one alpha? Are you that guy? Are you the leader? Are you the night in and night out number one player on your team? Are you giving effort consistently every single night on both ends of the floor? He needs to answer those questions. The Domas part of this is a gigantic part of it.
Huge question. And reading, you didn't get into the contract stuff, and I don't blame you because that's boring. But reading Hollinger's assessment of Domas's contract makes it seem that much tougher. I don't want to say unlikely, but that much tougher to keep him in the fold in the future.
Let's not get too much into the mathematics.
Right.
Let's look at it from Domas's point of view. And we said this when the Halliburton trade happened. When the Halliburton trade happened, one of the things we discussed on this show was that Domas had 2 years left on his contract. So no matter what the math is, the Kings have to win enough this year. They have to prove to Sabonis that they are headed in the right direction, because if not, next year is his final year of the deal. And he will just say, I'm not going to sign an extension because financially it doesn't make all the sense in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have not proven to me that you're headed in the right direction, so I'm going to play this thing out. The Kings have to take a significant step forward, enough to the point where Domas is a great fit, Fox is playing really good basketball, and Sabonis can look around and say, I feel like this team can actually win something within the next 4 or 5 years. I feel like this team can eventually contend, because if you don't get to that point, now you have to figure out what you're doing with Sabonis. And you're probably, if he's not willing to commit to you next summer, you are probably picking up the phone, whether it's Monty or somebody else, you're probably picking up the phone and at least gauging the value for Domas. So I think the year's huge for those two guys. Harrison Barnes is coming up. He's on an expiring contract.
Yep.
Gigantic season for him too. You know, there is a scenario here where you get into the summer, which is what I think you're painting. And I don't know. I agree with you. I don't know how much value Fox has. We know that Halliburton had much more value than Fox did, and that's why Halliburton was the one that was traded to Indiana for Sabonis. But if you don't have great value, because I think the only way you're going to recoup value on Fox is if he does prove he's a number one guy. And I think at that point, you're not trading him. So I think Fox is here. Unless it gets really bad, he asks out, he goes public, you have to trade him for, some bad contracts or whatever, and, a bag of basketballs. I think Fox is here. It's up to him to prove he's a one guy. Domas, I'm not so sure he's here past this season if this year doesn't go well for them. Harrison Barnes, same thing. I think he could be gone. And one other thing I would say, Ramie, to you, I would not even be surprised if this team gets off to a slow start and they're struggling and we're heading to the trading deadline. I would not be shocked if everybody outside of Keegan Murray is on the table.
It's on the trading block. I wouldn't be surprised either. People talk about Harrison Barnes potentially still being moved during the season. If this thing really, really doesn't work, like disaster, then yeah, and
it might not have a year, this core.
Exactly,
it might have a few months.
Exactly. That's how short the leash might be, man. And that's, I was reading right before we came on the air, and I will probably talk more about this tomorrow, but Dante DiVincenzo's article in The Athletic.
Yep.
And he was talking about the lack of stability in the Kings, how he liked what was here, but just the lack of stability and people who have been here for a long time and sort of set the way of doing things within the organization, how that makes it difficult to come into work day to day and know what's expected of you. You know what I mean? And
right.
And this type of uncertainty hanging over a roster and over a team, I don't think is always the best thing. I know it's a point Dave made on the morning show last week about you maybe give McNair a contract extension just so everybody knows, at least in theory, yeah, we're all here.
Yep.
It's one unit. We're one team. We have some stability, and this is the direction that we're going in. Without that, I think all these guys know what we're talking about here today, Nick. They're not dumb. They know their contract situations. They know their teammates' contract situations. I don't know that that type of pressure for where these guys are and where this team is is the greatest thing necessarily for this Kings basketball team.
And look, we're focusing on this season. We should be focused on this season. We have to focus on this season. But the interesting part, too, of this, if the decision is made that the core might not be working out, what is Vivek and ownership's reaction? We know Monty's gone, but in what direction would Vivek want to go? Because if you're looking at it, again, I think Fox is here. I do. With his contract, if he plays well enough to build value, you're holding on to him. So if you have Fox, unless you say we're going to keep Davion and Davion's going to be the starting point guard and we'll move Fox for other pieces, the point is, what will Vivek's reaction be if they're not improved? Outside of letting Monty go and letting him walk, is this a complete rebuild? Will the ownership want to go down that road? Because right now, when you look at this team, you really have, 3 pieces aside from Domas that you could say are young buildable pieces and you're probably excited about. And that is Fox, Davion, and Keegan.
Mm-hmm.
So does Vivek say we're building around Davion and Keegan, depending on what happens with Fox, and they try to, change the roster around those guys? Or is this just we are knocking it down and we're going to keep Keegan as our cornerstone? We're going to keep Davion. Everybody else is available, and we gotta go a different pathway. It's going to be fascinating. But again, it starts with what we're talking about, significant improvement. And I need to see significant improvement. And I don't necessarily need them to be in the playoffs this year to keep Monty. I want to feel like this team is taking the right steps.
For me, it's a lot of it is about eye test. I need to see things I can believe in,
right,
that are being built by this Kings team.
Sacramento State football back at home this Saturday versus Northern Colorado. Game time at Hornet Stadium is going to be at 6 p.m. You can get your tickets at hornetsports.com. Is it time to lower our expectations for George Kittle? Talk about that and more with Rob Stats Guerrera in 90 seconds.
You want more Kings coverage? You got it.
Tuesday win.
On fire. He's Rob Guerrera. He's Stats on Fire.
Stats on fire indeed on this hump day from the Niners Nation podcast. You can check him out. Rob Stats Guerrera, thank you for joining us as always. Great to catch up with you. Let's start with Jimmy G. Your evaluation of his game on Monday night against the Rams, Rob.
I thought he was fine, and not like fine, like very good. He was average. He did what he needed to do, and most importantly, he didn't turn the ball over, and that is the single most important thing that Jimmy Garoppolo can do, because if the 49ers protect the football, they are going to be very, very hard to beat with that defense.
Yeah, isn't it about at this point, especially with the defense playing the way that it's playing, don't lose the game. And the rest of the team, between the defense and the Deebo Samuels of the world doing inhuman things out there on the field, you're going to win a lot of football games.
Yeah, it sounds simple to say, but it's true. If you're not setting up the other team with short field and they have to go down the field and pick up multiple first downs to get any points against you, that defense is so damn good that most teams are not going to be able to do it, and certainly not going to be able to do it multiple times a game. And that's a simple formula for the 49ers, but it's effective.
Stats Guerrero with us here, Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. Stats, should we officially stop expecting George Kittle to have as much impact as far as being a receiver on the field as he once had, or do we give this a little more time?
So this is sort of the frustrating thing, because we all know what he's capable of. I mean, we're talking about a player that set the single-season receiving record for tight ends a few years ago with backup quarterbacks. But I think a couple of things are working against Kittle. First and foremost, there's problems on the offensive line, and this is where he's almost penalized for being such a good blocker, but they need him. They need him just to give Jimmy Garoppolo time to throw the ball, and they have so many other playmakers on offense that I think Kyle Shanahan looks at it and he says, well, we're going to have to sacrifice a little bit, and George is going to have to take that hit so that we can get the ball to Debo and to Ayuk. And the other thing is that, you know, Kittle is still running routes at the same rate that he's been running routes on. Jimmy Garoppolo is not looking his way for some reason when he does run routes. Now, is that because George is not getting open, or is that for some other reason? I don't know. But it's not like Kyle Shanahan is making Kittle block a crazy amount. It's just that for whatever reason, he and Jimmy just aren't connecting right now.
I've been somewhat critical of Kyle Shanahan this season. I know you have been at times, Rob. He deserves a lot of credit in my mind for what we saw on Monday night. I liked some of the wrinkles that I saw from the 49ers offense. What did you think of Kyle Shanahan's game plan?
I liked it too. I mean, you saw the first touchdown run that they had. Jeff Wilson Jr. was literally not touched by a single Rams player. And yeah, that's a good blocking, but it's also a good play call by Kyle Shanahan. And you saw him do some different things, right? He stopped running Deebo Samuel in the backfield because it just was not working and hasn't been working all year for the most part. Deebo only had 2 carries in the game. Instead, he got the ball in Deebo's hands on short passes as a receiver, and we saw the result of that when he broke that long touchdown. Kyle does self-scout in terms of his offense and his game plan, and we saw some changes on Monday night. That's really good. My criticism of Kyle Shanahan, and I think you guys know where I'm going to go, is his game management and his conservative play calls on fourth down. They're a 4th and goal from the 1.5-yard line. And you have a chance to make it a 2-score game and shut the door on the Rams. And what does Kyle do? He takes a delay of game, he chickens out, he turtles up, and he carts Robbie Gould out there to kick a field goal, which was so silly to me because it only made it an 8-point game. The 49ers were still one play away, one broken coverage, whatever you want to call it, away from potentially being in a tie game. Explain that to me. Make that make sense.
Thought it was a miserable decision, and I thought he got bailed out by them winning, frankly. Stats Guerrero with us here, Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. You brought up Brandon Ayuk, and maybe my expectations were too high for him, Stats, but, I mean, he hasn't had more than 5 catches in a game yet this season. His yardage at a high is 63 yards against Seattle. Can you hear us, Stats? Uh-oh.
Oh, I think we lost him.
Did we lose him? Hello, hello, hello.
Guys, I lost you.
You guys want to put him on hold? Let's see if I don't know what happened there.
We can hear him.
I was in the middle of a really good Brandon Ayuk question.
That was a really good question. Yeah. I could tell already.
It's at the top of my mind.
Are you going to be able to deliver the question the same way if and when we get Rob Stats Guerrero back on the line?
I'm going to try my hardest.
Okay.
I don't quite remember. Can you hear me, Rob?
I got you now.
There nice. We go. All right. So Stats. Sorry, the board. You know, we got some gremlins back there working their magic. So Brandon Ayuk, I thought he was going to have an explosive season. He hasn't had any more than 5 catches in a game. His season high so far is 63 yards receiving. He's got 1 touchdown. Are you surprised with how pedestrian he's been?
No, only because I feel like we've kind of seen this before with Jimmy Garoppolo as quarterback. For whatever reason, Brandon Ayuk is not one of the first places that Jimmy Garoppolo looks. And I think really his skill set lends itself to getting open deeper and further down the field and potentially outside the numbers. And that's just not where Jimmy Garoppolo goes with the football very often. And while I would like to see it happen more, because I think that that Ayuk is way better than people realize. If he just got the same opportunities, I think we would see his skill. But unfortunately, I think he's hurt the most by Trey Lance getting hurt, because Lance was constantly working out with Brandon Ayuk for multiple years. His skills and Lance's skills throwing the ball deeper down the field really matched up and complemented one another, whereas Ayuk's skills and Jimmy Garoppolo's skills don't. They do the opposite.
I think I asked you this last week, Stats. I think it bears asking again. How good is this 49ers defense? Are they as good as the numbers might look, or do you think that's a weaker schedule that we've seen here in the first 4 weeks?
No, this defense is the real deal. This defense is even better than it looks, because their points per game include a blocked field goal that was returned for a touchdown against the Seahawks.
That's true.
It's really not on the defense's fault. So they actually look better than the numbers. They're incredible. They have people playing at an all-pro level at every single level of the defense. And yeah, they haven't played, a Hall of Fame slate of quarterbacks. But in 2022, when it's never been easier in the history of professional football to gain yards and score points, the 49ers are absolutely shutting people down. They're the only team in the league that hasn't allowed a touchdown in the first half this season. In fact, I think they've only allowed 3 points in the first quarter all season, and that came against the Rams. They are every bit as good as they look on paper. And the good news for 49ers fans, they're getting better. Jimmy Ward's about to come back off injured reserve. He's a much better safety than Tashaun Gibson. They could be even better than they have been. Jason Verrett, also, if he can stay healthy, he can contribute at the cornerback spot. So this defense is the real deal, and we're not talking just best in the league. I think we potentially could be talking one of the best that we've seen in a long, long time.
Last one for you, Stats, because I want to ask you about the Carolina game. I mean, come on, 9.5 points is the over-under for that team against this defense of San Francisco. But let me ask you about the offensive line. Let's go back to the offense. McKivit's out now for 2 months. Trent Williams out for a while. Is this the critical point now? I mean, are we one more offensive lineman going down from an absolute catastrophic situation?
I think we are. I mean, really, they're already down to their third string left tackle, and we're 4 weeks into the season. Now, the good news is Trent Williams doesn't look like he's going to need surgery, so they're not going to put him on injured reserve, which tells me that they think there's a chance he could come back before 4 weeks, which is good. But, yeah, they're going to have to sort of get through the next few games here with Jalen Moore at left tackle. The good news for the Niners is the next two are teams that they should be able to deal with that against. Atlanta and Carolina. Carolina's defense is not terrible, but it's not an all-world defense where they're going to have major, major problems. I think what you're going to see from the Niners is a lot of what we saw against the Rams. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to get the ball out of his hands quickly, use short passes, a lot of screen passes. I think Garoppolo threw the ball in like 2.4 seconds or less against the Rams every single time. I think that's what the 49ers are going to try to do, because you're setting yourself up for disaster if you try to just do straight drop backs, 5-step, 7-step drops with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's not his strength anyway. So you're just trying to hold the fort here. And it's very realistic that the 49ers could be 4-2 going into that game against the Chiefs. That's really when you want to try and get some of these people back, because obviously that's going to be an incredible test going up against Mahomes.
Appreciate your Stats. We'll talk again next week, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
There goes Rob Stats Guerrera, Niners Nation podcast. Check him out there. Don't forget, Niners Nation podcast. Don't forget, YouTube channel, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. We'll play Big Deal or No Big Deal next.
Live and past broadcasts of the Carmichael Sactown Sports headlines.
NF. That's right. We're getting you ready for Thursday night football. The Colts, they will be without a few of their stars tomorrow versus the Broncos. Running back Jonathan Taylor, he's been ruled out for the game due to an ankle injury, while defensive leader Shaquille Leonard, he'll miss the tilt as he is still in concussion protocol. In the NFL, we have a few retirements in the league as well. 11-year veteran wide receiver Cole Beasley, he will retire according to his agent Joel Turner. Beasley has signed with the Buccaneers 3 weeks ago. He'll step away from the team. Also, the number 3 pick in the 2014 NFL draft, Blake Bortles, announced his quiet retirement Wednesday as well. Those are your Sactown Sports headlines. I'm Jay Johnson. Now more of the Kettles and Ramie Show coming up.
No matter what, national pundits always tell you something's big. Now it's our turn to tell you. Big deal or no big deal? Kettles and Ramie.
All right, so I want to give Chris Verlad credit because he knew that I was going to mess up, and I was going to attempt to host Big Deal or No Big Deal for, the third or fourth straight week?
Yeah.
So Chris jumped into the and I like how he did it. He jumped into the Slack chat. He says, reminder.
It's a very gentle nudge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Reminder. I introduce the Big Deal or No Big Deal. So, Chris Verlad, take it away.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, Mike Brown has not committed to Keegan Murray as a starter this season. And in the first preseason game, KZ Okpala got the start. Today in practice, Keegan was asked about practicing with the second unit. Here's what he had to say.
I mean, if I do my job on the court, everything else will take care of itself. So for me, KZ has been playing really well. And he's a great defender. So I know that I need to learn right now, and that's a big thing for me. And just do my job on the court, and everything else will take care of itself.
So, gentlemen, my question to you is, Keegan Murray not starting the season, is that a big deal or no big deal?
Am I going first on this one?
Yeah.
The first contestant.
You go.
On today's Big Deal or No Big Deal.
Lead off with Ramie.
I'm going to stay calm. Just like I did last night when I saw Jeff Passan's Barry Bonds tweet. I'm going to stay calm, and I'm going to say no big deal yet.
Yeah.
It's still the preseason. We still got a few weeks. When is the home opener, season opener for the Kings?
2 weeks from tonight.
And you just told me during the break?
We will be broadcasting live
and in living color.
Yes, at Golden One
Center.
Yes.
Looking forward to it.
Can't wait for that.
And I'm going to be in a really good mood that day, Nick. NBA season tipping off. We're going to be out there at a beautiful, brand new arena. I love what I do for a living. But I'm not going to be happy if Keegan Murray ain't starting that night. That's going to put a sour on my whole mood. It's no big deal right now. I'm just going to chalk it up as, and it sounds like Keegan Murray, even in the soundbite that we just heard, he kind of knows what this is. Coach Brown is basically telling me I got to earn it. If I do the right things and I play the right way, everything will fall into place. Basically what he's saying right there is, Coach is making me earn it. Coach better see that he's earned it by opening night of the regular season, or I'm going to have a problem, man. For the way that Keegan Murray was sold to us in the draft, and for what Keegan Murray has done in the summer league and now in one preseason game, showing himself very well, showing that the NBA is not too big for him. There's no good reason that Keegan Murray should not be starting by opening night. But right now, today, October 5th, after one preseason game, not a big deal.
We can't treat this as a big deal during the preseason. I agree with you. But game number 1, 2 weeks from tonight, he should be in the starting lineup.
Yes.
And if he's not in the starting lineup, then that is a big deal to me. You did not spend the 4th pick in the draft overall to have this guy sit behind KZ Okpala. With all due respect to Okpala, yes, good defender. Some people believe he's got some potential offensively. But you are not sitting Keegan Murray for KZ Okpala. I'll say it again. You're not sitting Murray for Okpala, okay? Unless you are Okpala's family, you're not sitting him for Keegan. And as good as Okpala is defensively, and look, we're not talking about Giannis here, but let's say he's even very good defensively. Here's the question. Okpala's defense, is it good enough? Is it that much better than Keegan's defense to justify sitting Keegan's offense and everything else that he does?
Is he going to take more points off the board then Keegan is going to put on the board. Is essentially that's the math you're asking here, Nick.
Yes.
Is Akpala going to take more points off the board than Keegan will put on the board? And I got to imagine that the answer to that is no, right?
I would have to imagine, because we're not talking about Keegan. He is not somebody who's just a sieve out there on the floor defensively, right? Like if we were talking about somebody who could not defend whatsoever, couldn't defend if his life depended on it, then you might look at it and say, well, Akpala defends. But Keegan's a good defender. So Keegan's a good defender, and he is a superior offensive player versus Akpala. You play your best guys. Don't overthink it. You play your best five. And what did we say when Murray was drafted? He's the most NBA-ready player in this draft. Mm-hmm. NBA-ready means you start the young man. He's out there playing 30 to 35 minutes. NBA-ready doesn't mean you bring him in and you say, enjoy the bench while KZ Akpala picks up your minutes. No.
No big deal today, though, right?
No big deal today.
Today. It's no big deal.
I would like to amend something to that.
Okay.
All right? One of the things that we've been talking about is, can Keegan handle being the third option?
Yes.
So wouldn't bringing him off the bench give him a better odds of him not being the third option?
Could.
Does that make it a little bit easier to swallow?
So being the first option on the second unit?
Yeah.
I still don't like it. I
still think that, so the way you structure the minutes, you could still have Keegan be out there for a stretch with him being the number 2 option, right? So you could have Fox and Domas sub out, keep Keegan on the floor, bring in Monk and Davion, or bring in, it'd be Monk, and then probably if you're keeping Herter out there, it'd be Monk and Rashawn Holmes in for Domas. So if you're subbing out Fox and Domas and you bring in Davion and Rashawn Holmes, Keegan Murray is now by far your, I think, number 1 option. Or you keep Domas out there with Murray, and then Murray is your 2 option, Domas is your 1, and then you go from there. So there's a way you can stagger the minutes to still give Keegan the opportunity to cook, so to speak, every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
they don't all have to come on and go off the court at the same time.
Right. And Monk and Monk is also, let's not forget, very good offensively. So, that's the great thing about having legitimate NBA depth. The fact that you can take a couple of guys out and you theoretically can replace them with cats that could still play and could still score. That's the idea. So yeah, you're gonna take Fox out, you're gonna take Domas out. In past years, Ramie, that would impact the offense in a very detrimental way.
You wouldn't have anybody out there that you could rely on.
You'd look around and say, where are we getting points from? Well, now you're getting points from Keegan, you're getting points from Monk. I still think Davion. By the way, I thought Davion's shot looked pretty good the other night. A little bit more arc underneath it. So I think Davion can score. So it's not one of those things where if you take your top 2 or 3 scorers out, you're up the creek without a paddle. You still feel like, no, we got guys that can still score some points here.
He needs to be starting by opening night. You can't justify it to me.
I got another big deal or no deal here.
All right.
Sure.
We all pretty much can tell that Keegan is an even-keeled guy at this point, I believe, right?
Yes.
He just seems to be really relaxed in the couple times you guys have spoken to him and we've heard things like that. Is there a big deal or no deal in the fact that you don't hear the intensity or the urgency in his voice to start? Like he might be settling for it to be okay for him to come off the bench.
That's exactly what I expect from that dude. And
interesting question, though.
I don't need to see the intensity bubble up to the surface. I know Keegan Murray wants. It's almost implied in what he said there that he wants to start. Basically, he's saying, "I'll take care of business, and things will fall into place." I don't need to see you red-faced and angry and calling attention to it in the media. No, that's exactly what I expect from that dude, and I'm totally fine with it.
I'm okay with it because, you have to tread lightly when you're a rookie, and he's not the alpha of this team, so he needs to kind of respect the pecking order as well. If you come out and you start lighting fires with a new head coach and, then you got De'Aaron Fox trying to explain things for you through the media and Domas. Look, I think he's a competitive guy, that's for sure. And let's not forget why he is so kind of tempered now, because he was not so much in high school. So he was too fiery, and he realized that it didn't quite work for him. I want Keegan to be Keegan. Don't go outside of who you are. Handle the situation that you're comfortable handling the way you want to handle it. As long as he goes out there and plays great basketball, it'll all fall into place.
I'd like to see the fiery side just out of curiosity to see what it looks like, because I can't even imagine it. I can't even imagine.
That's why I asked him.
A hot Keegan Murray, like a fired up Keegan Murray.
When we had him at Media Day, I asked him, was there like one event? I was hoping that like he threw a chair across a room or something one time, and he was like, all right, this might not be great.
I want to see Keegan Murray lose it. Not because I think it'll be good for him, but just I'm curious what that looks like.
I just don't want to see Brent Jones complaining that Keegan's hair is not messed up.
Or that he was smiling after a loss. God forbid he smiled after a loss.
So there you go. Big deal or no big deal. Let's give some tickets away. Win a pair of tickets to see comedian Bill Maher perform at Hard Rock Casino, Sacramento, February 25th, 2023. 916-339-1140 is the text line. Word of the day.
Time.
So text time to that lovely text line I gave you, 916-339-1140. Text time to that text line, and one of you lucky winners will win a pair of tickets to see one of you lucky texters will win a pair of tickets to see Bill Maher perform at Hard Rock Casino, Sacramento, February 25th, 2023. More information, check it out, sactownsports.com. Up next, Jaden Ivey and Zion hit the floor, and my man crush for a 7'4" freak grows deeper.
Sacramento Weather is brought to you by Sacramento County Voter Registration.
I'm Mark Finan in the KCRA3 Weather Center. Skies will stay clear tonight, a mild evening, and tomorrow is going to be another sunny and warm day. We'll see sunshine and light winds with a high of 92. Get the latest forecast on the KCRA3 News and the KCRA3 app.
The general election is November 8th. All registered voters will receive their vote-by-mail ballot in the mail. Vote early and vote by mail. Learn more at elections.saccounty.gov or call toll-free 800-762-8019.
For 74 years, the Keys family from Naturewood Home Furnishings has been serving families just like yours and mine. Hi, I'm Frank LaRosa with Golf to Go. The Naturewood team takes great pride in significant effort to offer Northern California
from the field. He shot 1 of 1 from 3. And, of course, he is going to be back court mates with Cade Cunningham, who was just tremendous in the second half of the year. I know not a lot of people likely watched the Pistons last year, let alone the second half of the season, but the Pistons played good basketball. They were a tough team after the All-Star break, and Cunningham really, you could tell that he was a rookie that figured things out a little bit. And in the second half of the year, that dude was really good. And so you've got Ivy, you've got Cade Cunningham, you've got some really exciting young talent in Detroit. And here was Ivy last night talking about playing aside Cade.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to play with Cade. I can remember watching the draft when he went number 1 overall. And it's just crazy that I'm in this position and I get to play with Cade.
So just a couple of things that I saw. I actually went online and I took a look at some Jaden Ivey clips from last night. And just a couple of things that stand out to me. His patience off the pick and roll. You ever see like a guard where they pin the defender on their back and they kind of like slow dribble it into the paint to find the open man? He does that very well at his young age. He's got really good patience off the pick and roll. He did it several times last night. You saw the great first step. I thought he did a really good job of moving without the basketball, which would, be part of playing here with Fox and Domas, especially Domas. Moves good without the ball, showed some good vision, hit a pull-up 3. The 3 he hit was a pull-up 3. So, look, I know people, every time I have this conversation, I've got to make sure that I underline and highlight this. When I say I would have drafted Ivy, it doesn't mean that I don't like Keegan. I like Keegan a lot. I've been on record multiple times saying that Keegan, I believe his ceiling is an all-star, the NBA level. I think he could reach that. I just think Ivy has a higher ceiling. I think Ivy has superstar potential. If Keegan gets there, great. It's a beautiful thing. But I have not seen anything as we talk about, Keegan and how he's looked summer league and Jaden got cut short because of an injury. But I have not seen anything from Jaden Ivey that makes me feel like he's got a long road to become a good NBA player. I think the ceiling is there, and I think this guy, if he reaches that potential, Ramie, absolute superstar.
I didn't see the preseason game, but I saw, I'm not the only one. Obviously, a lot of people saw that star potential in this guy when he was drafted. But I saw Jaden Ivey trending last night on Twitter.
Yeah.
And so in between taking deep breaths over the Barry Bonds takes that were being tweeted out last night, clicked on that to see why he was trending. And I immediately was like, and I know I said I put out a chair for the Kings parade after they won their first preseason game. That was hyperbole for comedic effect, for those of you who didn't pick up on that. Everybody calm down about Jaden Ivey after one preseason game with the Detroit Pistons. I'm with you, Nick. I was saying the same thing. I would have taken Jaden Ivey and the higher ceiling guy as well leading up to the draft. But if you're going with the win now mentality, which it appears the Kings are, and you and I both believe that there is a mandate put on Monty McNair and this front office to win now, or at least get this thing up and running to a certain level, then Keegan Murray was the guy to take for those purposes and for those goals. So I'm with you. I would have taken Jaden Ivey, but I see why they took Keegan Murray, and it doesn't mean that I don't like Keegan Murray or don't think he'll be a fine basketball player at this level.
Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. Zion returned last night to the floor. This was his first game in over 500 days.
Good. Ripped.
500 plus days. Yeah, I want to see him in the middle of the season when he's on the road and he has to turn down buffets and places to eat. I mean, in the off season when you got your nutrition guy and, your team looking after you, you can lose weight and show up shredded. I hope he remains in this kind of shape during the season. But Zion was back last night and finished with 13 and 4 and 15 minutes. Here he was in the postgame talking about his teammates. He got figured out.
Couldn't show him everything, but just kind of getting a feel for it again, finding spots, picking and choosing when I want to attack. But got a new team since the last time I played, and I'm still learning some of the guys, and I mean, today we were able to click. If we can do that for the rest of these preseason games, I feel like we'll be in pretty good shape.
I watched some of his game too last night on good old YouTube. I was checking it out today. I just want to see if he had the explosion, and he had the explosion, and he had the confidence. So he still has that freakish athleticism. Speaking of freakish, Ramie, let me tell you. I know I turned you on to
you've been
Victor
telling me about
Wabanyama.
this guy for a minute.
Yeah. I know we've been talking a little bit here and there about Victor Wabanyama. And I told you I started to see, some videos of him during last basketball season. And he is playing currently in Vegas. He played last night against G League Ignite, and he's also playing a game tomorrow. Now, what's cool about this is Scoot Henderson, who is the second-ranked player, who will likely go number 2 in the NBA draft next June. He is on G League Ignite. So this was the number 1 player and number 2 player going against each other. Both guys played well. Scoot got the upper hand in the first half. Second half, Wabanyama had the upper hand. G League Ignite won. But I'm telling you, man, watching some of that game last night, I didn't watch the whole thing, but watching some of that game last night, my man crush on Wabanyama grew deeper by the moment. This is a 7'4" KD shooting, Rudy Gobert defending freak. This guy can defend 1 through 5 on the floor at 7'4" with a ridiculous pterodactyl-like wingspan. And he literally, in one moment, blocked Scoot, got down the other end of the floor, and in transition, catches the basketball in one smooth motion, knocks down a 3. I don't know how many threes he hit last night. 5, 6, 7. Dude is 7'4", who can shoot, I'm talking at least a couple of feet behind the line, who can defend all 5 positions and block shots like crazy. He's got handle. I mean, this guy, I'm telling you, they're talking about him being as hyped as LeBron. Just as this season goes, man, wow.
It's silly.
It's crazy.
Watching him, and especially against the competition that he's going, no disrespect to those kids. They're all probably going to be very fine basketball players one day themselves. But it's a man amongst boys when watching him, Nick. And just some of the still shots from the game, like, it doesn't look real. His dimensions, I'm serious. His dimensions don't look, how far his arms reach doesn't make sense. When, like, my eyes can't process it and make it make sense for my brain. It's like a created player on a video game that you just made as tall as you can, made the wingspan as big as you can, and gave him 99 in all the attributes.
I'm telling you, if you're a basketball fan, just if you got like 10, 15 minutes of spare time, go to YouTube and Google Victor Wembanyama and just watch this guy.
Crazy.
He is, we talk about Giannis being like a one-of-a-kind. This dude is a one-of-a-kind. He truly has that kind of crazy skill. Thanks to Chris. Thanks to JJ. Great job as always. Ramie, great job.
Thank
Back
you.
tomorrow for a Thursday edition of Cattles and Ramie. Talk plenty of football, I'm sure. Niners. We'll also talk a lot of Kings. Until then, be well. Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sport.
On to the altar. I know you ain't but remember what I taught you. Keep your heart 3 stacks. Keep your heart. Hey, keep your heart 3 stacks.